The system announces that the protagonist has been chosen. He lies on the ground. The system tells Lloyd that he is now a character. He stares at the system window, still lying on the ground. The system window offers good luck. He is now fully awake. A red health alert window pops up. He is frustrated by the system's constant alerts, swipes at the window. He contemplates his situation. Javier, the legendary protagonist of the novel, stands before Lloyd and commands him to return to the manor. He stares at Javier in shock. The story begins with Lloyd holding a shovel beside Javier, before this new life starts making demands. A man carrying a shovel and a companion holding a flag. A white flag flapping in the wind. The man with the shovel stands confidently in the field. The small creatures make playful sounds as the man clarifies his identity, stating that in this world, he is known as Lloyd Frontera. Lloyd twirls his shovel with a dramatic flair. He slams the shovel into the ground with force. A glowing, digital-looking grid expands across the landscape. The digital grid continues to spread. The grid manifests into a holographic projection of a modern city. The holographic city projection fills the frame. He and Javier stand before the holographic city. He addresses Javier by name, and Javier responds respectfully. He laughs boisterously, his expression one of pure joy and greed. He continues to laugh maniacally in the field. The scene transitions to a flashback. The system announces that the protagonist has been chosen. He lies on the ground. The system tells Lloyd that he is now a character. He stares at the system window, still lying on the ground. The system window offers good luck. He is now fully awake. He is still face down on the dirt road. He shivers, complaining. He notices something wrong with his lips and jaw. A red health alert window pops up. He is frustrated by the system's constant alerts, swipes at the window. He contemplates his situation. A voice calls out to Lloyd, addressing him as Master Lloyd. A mysterious figure approaches Lloyd. A close-up shot focuses on the hip and sword hilt. A man with silver hair. Javier, the legendary protagonist of the novel, stands before Lloyd and commands him to return to the manor. He stares at Javier in shock. A flashback or mental scene shows Javier in his knightly attire. The realization hits Lloyd with the force of a physical blow, leaving him in a state of absolute shock. He and Javier stand facing each other in the dark field. Javier speaks, clarifying that while he called Lloyd's name, he never referred to him as a hooligan. The companion smirks. It is good that Lloyd. The large, imposing manor house under a cloudy night sky. Inside the manor, Javier kneels by the fireplace tending. Javier recounts the events of the previous day, painting a picture of the reckless life Lloyd had been leading. The companion mentions that the Baron sent word. He shivers in the cold room. The companion prepares to leave the room. He calls out to Javier as he reaches the door. He asks Javier if their family has a lot of debt. The companion looks at Lloyd with a strange expression. Javier exits the room, leaving Lloyd alone with his thoughts. He sits alone, reflecting on his knowledge of the story. A flashback shows Lloyd in a small room. A dramatic scene showing two hands clasped together. He recalls the next part of the story, Lloyd becoming. The final, gruesome scene of the original Lloyd coughing up blood. He is outraged, shouting about the pointlessness of being an aristocrat. A system alert window appears. A beautiful wide shot of the lush green landscape surrounding. The stone architecture of the manor, bathed in the morning light. Lloyd's mother Marbella approaches him, asking if he truly broke things. He denies the accusation. Marbella, Lloyd's mother, looks at him with a pained and pleading. He scratches his head, looking annoyed and reluctant. A wide, peaceful shot of the village rooftops under a clear blue sky, establishing the setting for the upcoming scene. A villager is seen working, loading straw onto a cart. The villager's face as he reacts with shock. The companion and Lloyd walk through the village street together. The villager from before scrambles away in a panic. The companion and Lloyd continue walking. The village street is in disarray as people dash away. He looks slightly bewildered by the extreme reaction of the villagers. A young boy peeks out from a window. An adult quickly pulls the boy back from the window. The window is slammed shut. A system notification pops up. He asks Javier why he is following. He is surprised to hear he needs an escort. He reflects on his situation. He daydreams about paying off his family's debt and living. He wonders if he has any special skills or cheat codes. The system displays Lloyd's skills, human scum. He reacts with frustration and annoyance. The companion asks where Lloyd is going. The companion points out the pub. The companion looks at Lloyd with a suspicious and intense gaze. He, feeling the pressure of Javier's stare, becomes flustered and asks. The companion dismisses the concern and tells Lloyd to go inside. He opens the door to the pub. The companion observes Lloyd. The interior of the pub is shown in a state. A bull skull mounted on a wall. He is on his knees, bowing deeply in a dramatic apology, while Javier stands behind him, looking down with a skeptical and unimpressed expression. The pub owner looks terrified. He continues his act. He tries to adjust his approach. The pub owner, still trembling, tells Lloyd that he does not. He looks thoughtful and slightly dejected as he walks away. He and Javier walk outside. discussing the failed apology. The companion points out that the owner's livelihood was destroyed. He contemplates the difficulty of gaining the villagers' favor while burdened. The companion adds that the owner's mother is also ill. He recalls the cold interior of the pub and realizes. He stops walking, struck by a sudden realization about how. He pauses in his tracks, Lloyd's face showing a sudden spark of inspiration. A light bulb appears above Lloyd's head. The light bulb glows intensely. An extreme close-up of Lloyd's eye, wide with excitement and determination. The light bulb shines brightly. Digital lines and blueprints flash across the screen. He visualizes the construction of Ondol floors. Lloyd is ecstatic, confident that his engineering skills will allow him to succeed where the original Lloyd failed. The spirit of Suho Kim manifests behind Lloyd. He reflects on his past experience as a civil engineering student. He clenches his fist. He excitedly runs back toward the pub. He shouts his intention with renewed vigor. The system signals the start of a new phase. The system introduces the relationship points RP mechanic. The system clarifies that improving relationships with key characters is the way to earn RP. The system displays a 0 RP total. Lloyd is caught off guard, staring in disbelief as the system reveals his true nature. Lloyd examines a series of floating blue system interface panels that have appeared. A new system notification appears. Clearly, RP is earned by improving relationships with Key. A notification sound alerts Lloyd, and he looks toward Javier. A system message displays that Javier's favorable impression of Lloyd has dropped by 30. He turns to Javier, attempting to address the situation. He attempts to flatter Javier by telling him he is handsome. Despite the compliment, a system notification reveals that Javier's favorable impression of Lloyd has decreased by another point, now sitting at -31. He decides to stop trying to force the relationship for now. The exterior of a local pub. Inside the building, Lloyd sits at a table with a pen. He presents a document to the pub owner. The pub owner looks at the document with deep suspicion. He realizes the owner's reliability is low due to the reputation. He internally struggles, determined not to ruin the plan he set. He decides to lean into his bum scene to manipulate. The owner begins to sign the contract. He successfully secures the first contract and rolls it up. He gloats to the owner. Back outside, Lloyd stands with a shovel, planning to keep. The companion calls out to Lloyd. The companion confronts Lloyd about his behavior. He looks away, his expression unreadable, as he prepares to respond. He tells Javier that he is more illogical than he looks. Lloyd explains that he will continue doing things as he has in the past. The companion counters that his reaction is not based on prejudice. He challenges Javier, asking if both experience and estimation do not. The companion is left speechless. He expresses his goal to make people smile. He reiterates his commitment to making the owner and his mother. The shovel hits the ground with a heavy thud. Lloyd is fully committed to his construction project, viewing it as the key to his future wealth. He continues his frantic. He is seen working on the wooden frame of a structure. The structure is now taking shape. He lies on the ground. The companion approaches the exhausted Lloyd. The companion reflects internally. He is still trembling from exhaustion, struggles to stand up, insisting. He continues to struggle. He raises the axe again. He loses his balance while swinging the axe. The companion steps in, grabbing the handle of the axe. The companion stands behind Lloyd. The companion takes the axe from Lloyd. He explains his plan to Javier. The companion watches as pieces of wood are tossed. The companion swings the axe with incredible speed and precision. The companion executes a powerful. The wood is perfectly cut into uniform pieces. He stares in complete shock and awe at the perfectly cut. He gives a thumbs up. The companion stands with the axe. Lloyd attempts to leverage Javier's newfound cooperation. He holds up the shovel. The companion looks annoyed and frustrated. He continues to press Javier. He holds out the shovel to Javier with a confident. The companion reflects internally. The companion and Lloyd are both shown digging in the dirt. The companion is shown working hard. He continues to dig with intense focus, the shovel striking the earth, kicking up dust and debris. Lloyd swings the shovel with a wide, powerful motion, his body fully engaged in the task. The shovel bites deep into the ground. He and Javier stand before the small house. He raises his fist in the air. He shows Javier a wooden sign featuring his brand logo. He invites Javier to inspect the house, gesturing toward the structure. He reflects on the trouble he caused the owner. The companion stares silently. The wind blows through the trees. A fire crackles warmly in the fireplace. The exterior of the house is shown with smoke rising. Inside, the elderly couple is visibly moved, reacting with joy. The elderly woman lies on the floor. The elderly man is overwhelmed by the change. He observes the couple with a knowing smile. A magical glowing diagram appears on the floor, representing the Gudale. The elderly man expresses his deep gratitude to Lloyd. The companion watches the scene. The companion reflects on how much Lloyd has changed. The companion continues to observe the couple. The elderly couple holds hands, looking at each other with genuine happiness. The companion looks on with a soft, contemplative expression, acknowledging that the couple is truly happy now. The system indicates that Javier's favorable impression of Lloyd A system notification shows a negative value for favorable impression. A system notification confirms that Lloyd has acquired 36 RP due. He smiles to himself. The companion confronts Lloyd. He reflects on his successful contract. A small, modest model house stands as a promotional display. A few days later, inside the model house, he is looking energetic and slightly disheveled, enthusiastically promotes the heating system, which involves building a separate structure. A client expresses hesitation. He continues to press the client. He turns around, his expression shifting from sales mode to surprise. Lloyd's father, Arcus Frontera, stands before him with a stern. He stares back at his father. A large, stone-walled estate building surrounded by a simple garden path. Lloyd and his father sit at opposite ends of a long, formal dining table. His father continues eating, his expression stern and focused. Lloyd internally worries about whether his father will allow him to pursue his construction work. His father breaks the silence, demanding that Lloyd explain his recent actions. His father stares intensely at him, questioning his recent behavior and motives. He nonchalantly explains that he simply built. Lloyd's father questions if Lloyd has been making secret agreements with the estate residents. His father sternly lectures him, emphasizing that the estate's priority is the welfare of its people and that deception will not be tolerated. He brushes off his father's concerns, internally lamenting that he is destined to be misunderstood no matter what he does. He stands up, declaring he has nothing more to say and intends to leave. Lloyd's father questions if Lloyd's behavior is driven by their family's current financial situation. His father reassures him that the family will overcome their current predicament and urges him to stay on the right path. He reflects on his father's words, feeling a sense of cynicism. A flashback shows a man. He looks back, his expression somber as he acknowledges the harsh. He walks away, questioning if he is destined to be miserable. He reflects on the past. He is back in the present, calculating the number of construction types he has to manage. He notices two men approaching him in the hallway. The two men identified as loan sharks, Meatloaf and Shiloh, walk. The loan sharks are annoyed that Lloyd didn't greet them, as they consider themselves important figures. He recognizes the loan sharks and realizes the trouble they. A closed door stands between Lloyd and the room where his father is meeting the loan sharks. Inside the room, the loan sharks are aggressively pressuring Lloyd's father. The loan sharks threaten to take further action if the father. The loan sharks mock the father. He smiles to himself. He steps into the room with a confident. A system notification appears, indicating that Lloyd has gained RP, reputation points, due to Javier's favorable impression. The system announces before Lloyd. The system interface glitches. A magical blue circle manifests on the floor. As the blue light envelops him, multiple system windows pop up around Lloyd, rapidly detecting and cataloging his technical knowledge. The system continues to scan Lloyd. The system comments on Lloyd's unexpected level of knowledge. A menu appears listing the skills Lloyd can acquire based. He stares at the floating system menu with a confused expression, realizing he has 36 RP. Upon activating the skills, he is stunned to find that he can now perceive. He tests his new basic design skill. He sits on his bed. He imagines summoning heavy machinery to assist with the construction. The system confirms that summoning is indeed possible. He leans forward intensely, focused on a new system notification. The screen displays the cost for a single draw, 50 RP. He sighs, noting that he only has 1 RP left making. He envisions the fantasy creatures he could potentially summon. Lloyd's eyes widen with intense determination. He concludes that the most efficient way to earn RP. The loan shark, looking smug and predatory, tells the Baron. The loan shark smiles maliciously. The Baron looks horrified and deeply offended by the loan sharks. He intervenes, stepping in to confront the loan shark. The loan shark turns to look at Lloyd. The loan shark recognizes Lloyd and mocks. He stands his ground against the loan shark. The loan shark and his associate look stunned and confused by Lloyd's sudden demand, their expressions shifting from predatory confidence to bewilderment. He cites a specific noble law. He continues his legal argument. The loan sharks react with outrage and disbelief. He maintains his calm. He calls out for Javier. The companion enters the room. The companion stands in the doorway. He has a menacing grin, orders Javier to cut off. The loan sharks are terrified by the threat. He remains unfazed, smugly reminding the loan sharks that he suggested. The companion draws his sword. The loan sharks are visibly shaken and sweating. The loan sharks continue to protest. He slams the door. He dismisses the loan sharks' threats as absurd. He and Javier are now alone. A man, presumably the Baron, enters and demands to know what. He calmly places a bag of money on the table. Lloyd explains that the bag contains a down payment he received, intending to use it to address the Baron's debts. The Baron is shocked. The companion reassures the Baron. Javier promises to monitor Lloyd to ensure he keeps his word to the people, showing a level of trust and responsibility. The Baron observes Javier. He and Javier prepare to leave. He and Javier walk away. He reveals to Javier that he knew about the law. A flashback shows Javier standing in the rain at a grave. The flashback continues. A character's face in the rain, sweating and distressed. A flashback shows Javier in the rain. He and Javier walk together in a hallway. The system indicates that Baron Frontera's favorable impression of Lloyd. A second system notification box confirms that Lloyd has acquired 60. With his immediate goals met, Lloyd sets his sights on new, more ambitious targets. A full moon shines brightly in the night sky above a dark, silhouetted forest. The atmosphere is quiet and mysterious. Lloyd stands alone in a training field at night, looking at the moonlit surroundings. He looks around cautiously, checking to make sure he is truly alone before proceeding with his secret task. A glowing blue interface appears in front of Lloyd, presenting a fantasy species random draw option that costs 50 RP. He presses the start button on the digital interface with his finger, initiating the random draw process. A bright green magical light erupts from the interface as Lloyd holds up a card, signaling the successful activation of the summon. Glowing magical gears materialize in the air, spinning rapidly as they form a summoning circle. The magical gears continue to spin in a circular formation, emitting light and energy as the summoning spell takes effect. He watches in shock and awe as the magical light intensifies, his eyes wide with surprise at the display of magic. A complex magical circle with glowing gears and text appears in the air, pulsating with energy. A small, glowing object emerges from the magic circle, accompanied by strange, chaotic noises that annoy Lloyd. The magical circle emits a bright flash of light as the summoning process nears its completion. A cute, round hamster appears from the light, looking cheerful and energetic. He stares at the hamster with a deadpan, unimpressed expression, clearly disappointed by the result of his summon. The hamster lands on the ground with a thud. The hamster named Peepadong looks up with a bright, innocent smile. He stands over the small hamster. He sighs in frustration, declaring that the summon is a failure. Peepadong looks up at Lloyd with wide, teary eyes, looking hurt by his comment. The creature squeaks in protest. He dismisses the idea of the hamster being useful for combat. The creature starts chewing on something. The creature spits out a piece of dirt. He holds a manual for Peepadong. The manual describes Peepadong as a cute hamster that needs care. He reads about feeding Podong sunflower seeds to change its build. The manual explains how blue sunflower seeds can restore Peepadong's size. He considers if Podong can grow as big as a human. He offers a red sunflower seed to Peepadong. The creature eats the red sunflower seed. He watches in shock as Peepadong. The rapid expansion of Peepadong's body creates a powerful shockwave. He is thrown through the air. He scrambles to his feet. The giant hamster, now 5 meters tall, looms over the landscape. He sits on the ground. The creature looks down at Lloyd with a condescending. The system confirms that Peepadong has unlocked the excavation level. The creature begins to dig into the earth with incredible speed. Another system notification pops up. The creature continues its rapid excavation. A third skill notification appears. Peepadong's cheeks bulge significantly as it utilizes its new storage ability. The creature spits out a massive pile of dirt. The pile of dirt lands with a heavy thud. Lloyd grins widely, realizing that Podong has effectively solved his heavy machinery and labor problems. He walks through the estate. He hatches a plan to carry a summoning book and pretend. He continues to walk. A wide shot shows the Frontera barony. He stands before a group of workers. He shouts the slogan with intense energy. The workers, looking exhausted and confused, half-heartedly repeat the slogan clearly. He observes the workers. He decides to leverage the fact that there are no additional. He asserts his authority. He uses his own military experience to justify the hard labor. He points to the massive pile of dirt. He reveals that it was actually Peepadong who did all. He announces the heated room construction project. The workers look visibly exhausted and defeated. He observes the workers' miserable state with a cold, calculated expression. He is interrupted by the arrival of a knight. The knight, a senior knight of the Frontera barony, confronts Lloyd. He maintains a smug. He recalls the internal hierarchy of the estate's knights. He reflects on the novel's plot. He mentally critiques Neumann. He looks at Neumann with a mix of disdain and disbelief. He calmly asks Neumann what he thinks they are doing. The knight expresses his indignation. He dismisses Neumann's concerns with a blunt remark. The knight threatens to bring up Lloyd's past. The knight continues his verbal attack. Unfazed, he sarcastically asks if he is wrong, goading Neumann further. He continues his taunting. He finishes his sentence. The knight is visibly enraged. He prepares to strike. He swings the shovel with full force toward Neumann. The workers watch in complete shock and horror as Lloyd attacks. The knight is forced to block the blow. He maintains a calm. The knight is furious. He mockingly cups his ear. He swings the shovel again. He stands ready with his shovel. He smiles confidently, inviting Neumann to a duel, clearly enjoying. The knight is pushed to his limit. A text bubble appears over a building, informing Lloyd that he is scheduled to have a duel with Knight Neumann in 1 month. Xavier, a knight with light blue hair, looks at Lloyd with a skeptical expression and asks if he has the confidence to win. He, sitting on a bed next to a book, reacts with exaggerated shock and stupidity, claiming he obviously does not have the confidence. He complains to Xavier that his opponent is a skilled knight and a junior sword expert. The companion rests his hand on his sword hilt, thinking to himself that he almost cut Lloyd down due to his annoying behavior. The companion reflects on Lloyd's recent erratic behavior. Xavier continues to analyze Lloyd's recent actions, recalling how he manipulated the situation with the Baron and appointed Knight Bayern as a substitute supervisor. The companion remains confused by Lloyd's lack of confidence regarding the duel. He sits on the bed and tells Xavier that there is something he needs to do, while Xavier looks on with a suspicious expression. He bluntly asks Xavier to teach him how to use the sword, wearing a confident and slightly mischievous smile. The companion immediately rejects Lloyd's request, stating firmly that he does not want to teach. He reacts with frustration, while Xavier explains that his primary duty is to watch over him, and he considers Lloyd to be a scumbag. The companion continues to insult Lloyd. He persists, asking Xavier if he is truly refusing to teach him, while Xavier maintains his cold, stoic demeanor. He makes a proposition to Xavier, offering to treat his insomnia in exchange for sword training. The companion is visibly shocked and surprised by Lloyd's knowledge of his secret condition, wondering how he could possibly know about his insomnia. He smirks internally, acknowledging that he knows about Xavier's condition because he read it in a novel, and he also knows the cause. A diagram explains the 4 levels of knight ranks in the novel Blood and Iron's Knight. He explains the Swordmaster syndrome to Xavier. The companion sighs, seemingly defeated or considering the offer, as he closes his eyes. The companion agrees to give the deal a try, while Lloyd enthusiastically tells him not to go easy on him during training. Xavier expresses skepticism, stating that Lloyd will surely fail, and lists the various methods he has already tried to cure his insomnia without success. The companion falls asleep in a chair while holding a pillow. He observes Xavier sleeping soundly and smugly declares that he knew. He reveals that Xavier fell asleep because he was reciting boring. He has a manic. The scene transitions to a bright sunny morning with birds chirping. Xavier, looking refreshed and stern, commands Lloyd to start his training by running 50 laps. He stares at Xavier with a blank. He turns his head away. He continues to run laps around the training field while Xavier, a wide shot shows Lloyd running across the training grounds. He continues his relentless running. He stops running and approaches Xavier, looking exhausted and frustrated. He is back to running, his silhouette visible in the distance as Xavier continues to watch him from the same spot. He stops again, pointing a finger at Xavier with a smug. He turns and resumes running. He continues to taunt Xavier while running. The companion reacts with a gulp. He laughs triumphantly as he continues to run. The system indicates that Lloyd's passive skill, being ugly. Close up on Lloyd's boots hitting the ground as he continues. He admits to himself that he is exhausted. Flashback to Lloyd's past in Korea. The flashback continues. He in his past continues to struggle, his hands bloodied. A dark, somber moment in the flashback where Lloyd encourages himself. He continues his labor in the flashback. A bright light shines on Lloyd's hand. The light intensifies as Lloyd reaches out. Close up on Lloyd's face, showing his intense focus and the physical toll of his past struggles, his eyes wide with determination. Lloyd's hand reaches out into the darkness. He sits on the ground. The present scene shows Lloyd running. He continues to run under the moonlight. The companion watches Lloyd from the side. The companion finally speaks to Lloyd. A system notification appears, confirming that Xavier's favorable impression of Lloyd has increased by 1 point. Another system notification shows the current state of Xavier's favorable impression. A final system notification confirms that Lloyd has acquired 18 RP. The scene opens at night. Inside, a man with a mustache stands over a desk expressing. Lloyd reflects internally, admitting he misunderstood the man's character, thinking he had finally come to his senses recently. The man claims it is his moral duty to continue the duel, but asks Lloyd not to be too harsh. The man urges Lloyd not to badly hurt the successor. He calmly agrees to the request. The man smirks with a sinister expression. The man walks down a hallway. The man wears a menacing expression. The man walks away. A time skip occurs. A crowd has gathered around a makeshift wooden arena. Spectators watch from the sidelines. The opponent holding a sword asks Lloyd if he is prepared. The opponent's boots as he steps forward. The opponent plants his foot firmly on the ground. He is holding his shovel over his shoulder, smiles confidently and tells. Lloyd stands confidently with an iron shovel resting on his shoulder. The knight looks visibly irritated and frustrated, his brow furrowed as he reacts to the absurdity of his opponent's weapon choice. The companion watches from the sidelines, reflecting on how Lloyd specifically requested this iron shovel from the blacksmith. Javier and a noblewoman observe the scene, with Javier questioning if Lloyd is just messing around, though he seems increasingly doubtful of that assumption. The companion contemplates Lloyd's recent behavior. A montage shows Lloyd's rigorous daily routine, performing intense morning physical training. The companion concludes that Lloyd's intense work ethic proves he is genuinely serious, shifting his perspective on the young master's capabilities. An official announces the commencement of the duel between Lloyd and Neumann, signaling the start of the confrontation. The knight readies his sword, looking focused and prepared to engage, while Lloyd adopts a stance with his shovel. He takes a combat stance with the shovel, his expression confident and ready to fight, contrasting with the seriousness of the duel. The knight criticizes Lloyd's stance, clearly unimpressed and annoyed by the unconventional way he is holding the shovel. The knight lunges forward to attack, while Lloyd remains calm, preparing to defend against the incoming strike. He shifts his grip on the shovel. He successfully blocks Neumann's sword strike with the iron shovel. The companion and another observer look on in shock. The knight, frustrated by the blocked attack, prepares for another strike. He and Neumann clash again. The companion watches the fight with intense focus. The companion is amazed, noting that Lloyd's sword technique seems to have evolved significantly, as if he has years of experience behind his movements. He smirks casually. Such combat skills are common knowledge. A flashback or mental scene shows soldiers performing a bayonet charge. He uses the shovel to strike Neumann. He expertly uses the flat blade of the shovel to shield. He delivers a powerful. He uses his foot to manipulate the shovel. He begins hopping on the shovel like a pogo stick. The companion watches in disbelief. He continues to laugh maniacally while fighting. The companion remains skeptical. The knight, overwhelmed by Lloyd's bizarre and effective combat-style retreats, he stands in a combat stance. Lloyd executes a series of rapid, fluid strikes with his shovel, mimicking basic sword techniques he learned from Javier. The knight is visibly shaken and confused. He activates a system skill called Synchronized Tool Skill, Digging LV. A status update shows that Lloyd's training has successfully increased Xavier's. Lloyd's system interface displays his accumulated reward points, RP. The system prompts Lloyd to spend 40 RP to learn. He wipes sweat from his brow. He returns to the duel. Neumann's face shows him breathing heavily. The knight admits to himself that he has no choice, but the knight begins to channel his mana. Xavier watches the scene with a sharp, focused gaze, immediately recognizing the significance of what Neumann is doing. Neumann's mana flares brightly. Lloyd observes Neumann, correctly identifying that he is revving up his mana, showing his tactical awareness. The focus shifts to the glowing mana heart within Neumann. The knight grips his sword tightly. The knight declares that he is now using his real strength. He remains calm and stoic. Neumann lunges forward with a massive, powerful sword strike, the sheer force of the movement creating a dramatic visual impact. The companion reflects on the difficulty of developing a mana heart. The knight swings his sword down with overwhelming force. He holds his shovel up. The knight shouts in anger. The Baroness watches in horror. Neumann's eyes widen as his powerful sword strike stalls. The knight feels his strength draining away. He has a menacing grin, declares that he has a fourth. Stunned as he realizes Lloyd is using the Azrahan core technique. He channels the Azrahan core technique through his shovel. The knight screams in agony and disbelief as his mana. He maintains a focused, intense expression while wielding his shovel. Lloyd's shovel strikes Neumann with incredible force. A small, white object flies through the air against a clear blue sky. The knight is sent reeling from the impact. He delivers another crushing blow with his shovel, hitting Neumann squarely. Lloyd stands tall, holding his shovel high above his head like a weapon of war. The shovel descends again, striking Neumann with devastating precision. The knight is knocked flat onto the ground. The surrounding crowd watches in absolute silence and shock. The companion and another observer look down from the stands. The crowd begins to murmur, confused and stunned by the outcome. An official or announcer reluctantly declares the winner of the duel. The knight lies on the ground, struggling to comprehend his defeat. He stands over the defeated Neumann, taunting him about his loss. He strikes a dramatic pose, resting his shovel on his shoulder. He prepares to deliver a final, humiliating blow. The knight looks up in terror, pleading with Lloyd to stop. The companion watches the scene with intense anxiety. He now appearing with devilish horns and a manic grin swings. The companion screams in desperation. Two men in blue uniforms restrain Lloyd, who is aggressively wielding a shovel over a fallen opponent. Javier watches Lloyd with a look of disbelief and concern, questioning if Lloyd has lost his mind. Lloyd's face as he contemplates the situation, seemingly unfazed by the chaos he just caused. Still held by the two men, he calmly asks them to let him go. He stands tall and sighs, looking relieved as he holds his shovel, while the opponent remains collapsed on the ground. He continues to strike the fallen opponent with his shovel, while the two men try to restrain him, shouting for him to stop. Javier observes the scene closely, realizing that Lloyd is intentionally striking the opponent in non-lethal areas to minimize pain while still causing a scene. The opponent continues to scream as Lloyd strikes him with the shovel, with Javier noting that the hits are calculated to avoid severe injury. The companion watches Lloyd's calm expression, noting that it seems as if Lloyd anticipated the entire outcome of the duel. The companion stares at Lloyd, struck by the realization that Lloyd seems to possess knowledge beyond what should be possible. A flashback to 15 days before the duel. The companion looks at Lloyd with a suspicious and confused expression, questioning why Lloyd is asking for such a technique. A diagram shows a human silhouette with mana flowing through it, as Lloyd explains his understanding of how the technique attracts external mana. The companion is shocked, asking how Lloyd could possibly know about a secret, incomplete technique he has never revealed to anyone. He smiles, claiming he heard Javier talking about it in his sleep when he previously put him to sleep. Javier looks at Lloyd. The companion refuses to teach Lloyd the technique because it is incomplete, while Lloyd holds a wooden practice sword. He smiles confidently, asking Javier if he would teach him the technique if he were able to complete it himself. The companion looks at Lloyd with a mix of skepticism and surprise, questioning his confident expression. He strikes the ground with his sword, signaling the start of his explanation. He points to his chest, explaining his theory about how a mana heart might absorb external mana on its own. He gestures with his hand, explaining that the mana heart treats external mana as a foreign substance and bounces it out. A diagram shows mana concentrating separately from the main mana heart. The mana concentrates into a separate glowing orb. The mana orb is manipulated and applied according to Lloyd's instructions. He explains his concept of an auxiliary engine. The companion is stunned, admitting he doesn't understand what an engine is, but acknowledging that Lloyd's idea might actually work. Lloyd claps his hands, feigning ignorance and acting as if he just imagined it, while Javier remains suspicious of his true knowledge. The companion is shown successfully completing the Azrahan mind technique. The technique is shown to create 3 circles of mana. The system indicates that Xavier's favorable expression toward Lloyd. He is holding a wooden sword, looks shocked and confused. A thought bubble reflects on Lloyd's unexpected ability. He is shown in a man with red hair, a wider view of the confrontation. Lloyd, sweating and breathing heavily, retorts to the man's concern about a knight's reputation with a sharp, challenging question. He points a finger at the man. Under the tablecloth, a collection of sealed letters is revealed. The man stares in horror and disbelief at the documents he is holding, clearly shaken by their contents. He explains that the letters are from Tordes to Knight Neumann. He continues to expose the contents of the letters. The man, now visibly panicked, wonders aloud how Lloyd managed. He smiles to himself. He reveals that he had asked Peepadong to retrieve the letters. The man sits at the table. He reflects on the man's description as a kind man. He muses that the terms kind leader and good leader carry. He offers a suggestion to the group on how to deal. He suggests either dropping a ferocious rat on the man's head. The crowd murmurs in confusion. A man discusses the idea of handing out justice with minimal. The group agrees that the decision is wise. He confirms that they will proceed with the suggested plan. He asks Knight Neumann if he has any objections. He thinks to himself about the concept of mercy, looking skeptical. A philosophical thought is presented. If wrongdoers are given forgiving treatment, the answer is a resounding no. Knight Neumann, now filled with malice, vows revenge against the Baron. He smiles at the knight. Knight Neumann looks visibly shaken and sweaty. A small, cute hamster-like creature is held in a hand looking. He tosses the small creature high into the air against Lloyd's face, his expression intense and slightly menacing as he delivers. The small creature is shown mid-air. The creature glows with a bright. The crowd of onlookers stares upward. The creature is shown falling from the sky, like a meteor. Knight Neumann looks up. The creature continues its high-speed descent. A massive impact occurs, creating a shockwave of dust and debris. The creature lies face down on the cracked. He points a finger toward the sky with a triumphant. The rural landscape surrounding the estate, showing rolling hills, farmland, and distant mountains under a bright, clear sky. A small, round creature, Padong, moving with incredible speed, kicking up dust and debris as it dashes across the ground. Padong continues its rapid, blurred movement, leaving a trail of dust behind as it maneuvers through the area. The creature zips through the village streets, creating a whirlwind of dust that catches the attention of onlookers in the background. He and Javier watch Podong's frantic activity. The engineering unit, previously described as timid, is now shown working with intense, sweat-drenched focus, carrying heavy materials. A historical reference to the Roman Appian Way is shown, illustrating the inspiration behind the road-building project Lloyd is undertaking. He confidently outlines his plan to build a road stretching from the Baron's mansion to the eastern hillside. The companion questions the necessity of the road, but Lloyd dismisses his concerns, telling him to simply watch and see the results. He grins, explaining that the road will cause the estate's popularity to skyrocket, revealing his underlying motive for the construction. The companion confronts Lloyd, asking how he suddenly acquired such advanced knowledge and skills, clearly suspicious of the change in his master's behavior. The companion continues his interrogation. The companion stares intensely at Lloyd, directly questioning if he is truly the same person he has always known. A system notification appears, warning Lloyd that Javier is actively doubting his identity, raising the stakes for his deception. Javier's sharp, suspicious eyes, emphasizing his keen observation and the threat he poses to Lloyd's secret. He reflects on his knowledge of the novel. He recalls Javier's tendency to draw his sword when suspicious, acknowledging the physical danger. He attempts to deflect, claiming he has a special skill called persistence that he studied in secret to handle such situations. He aggressively questions Javier, The companion remains unconvinced. He turns the tables. He continues his frantic. The companion is left speechless and visibly sweating. He declares he is leaving to check on something. He walks away, internally panicking, but trying to convince himself. Lloyd instructs Knight Byron to oversee the work while he is away, maintaining his authority as the young master. The companion insists on accompanying Lloyd. He tells Javier they are going somewhere far to collect unpaid. A sunset view of the Rudinia estate. A wooden sign hanging outside a building. A hand slams down onto a wooden table in frustration. The visitor, the real estate scammer, sits at a table. A tall, scarred man in a black cloak stands over Thords. The bodyguard, looking stern and unimpressed, threatens to leave Thords if the visitor panics, grabbing the table and begging the bodyguard not. Thords, alone now, clutches his head, trying to rationalize his situation. Suddenly, a door is kicked open. He stands in the doorway. He smiles, looking amused. He introduces himself with a confident smirk. The realization of who Lloyd is leaves Thords paralyzed with fear. He walks forward, his footsteps echoing. The bodyguard lunges at Thords. The bodyguard and Thords crash through the window. The bodyguard carries Thords through the air. The bodyguard looks back, his expression one of intense focus and surprise. A man with light blue hair. The companion draws his sword, his movements fluid and precise. The companion stands firmly in the alley. Javier's eyes are sharp and focused. The companion recalls Lloyd's specific prediction about the scammer's escape route. The bodyguard, now cornered, glares at Javier, calling him a young. The bodyguard channels dark, magical energy into his hand. A recap of the situation. Javier. The bodyguard unleashes a wave of dark energy. The companion clashes with the dark energy. The companion is caught in a sphere of dark energy. The bodyguard, looking confident, prepares to deliver a final blow. The bodyguard's fist, glowing with dark energy, is about to strike. Javier stands in a low, defensive stance, his sword held ready as he channels his energy. The scammer, Thords, watches with a look of shock and realization. The companion focuses his power. The internal monologue confirms the source of Javier's newfound strength. He now possesses a mana heart with triple circles. The companion swings his sword with incredible speed and precision. The companion pauses, his expression calm and analytical. The black magician, Thords' bodyguard, looks on with a grim tense. The companion aggressively pursues the scammer. The companion approaches the terrified scammer with a cold, intimidating demeanor. The scammer trips and falls in his desperate attempt to escape. The companion stands over the fallen scammer. A swift, decisive sword strike is executed, the motion blurred by speed. Lloyd suddenly intervenes, rushing in to stop Javier from harming the scammer. He looks frantic and distressed, shouting at Javier. The companion pauses, looking at Lloyd with a mixture of surprise. He maintains his intense, worried expression, his eyes locked on Javier. A moonlit night over a small, quiet village. A man with green hair is tied up and trembling in fear, sitting at a table. Lloyd sits across from the bound man, looking calm and composed. He smiles at the captive, trying to appear friendly and reassuring, though his expression is clearly manipulative. He continues his psychological pressure. People become greedy when their lives are at stake and would cause trouble if given the chance. Lloyd offers a glimmer of hope, but it comes with strings attached. He leans in, smiling, and asks the captive if he is grateful. The captive is willing to do anything to secure his safety. He smiles, agreeing that the money is what he is supposed to get, framing it as just how life works. The tension between the two is palpable. He informs the captive that he has another condition for his forgiveness. He slides a contract across the table, telling the captive that it is simple and that signing it will resolve everything. The captive looks at the contract, worried about what it entails. He adds a catch. 80% of the captive's salary will be taken as repayment. The reality of the contract hits the captive hard. He adds that the payment would be done after 520 years, effectively enslaving the man for a lifetime. The captive is in complete shock, his face contorted in horror as he realizes the true nature of the deal. The companion watches from the side. He smiles rhetorically, asking if he looks crazy enough to kill the guy who owes him money, stating he would never incur such. He holds a long, thin glass tube, threatening to sip out everything he can from the captive for the rest of his life. The captive screams, asking why Lloyd came up with such an unfair contract. He looks intense, stating that if the captive won't sign, they have no choice but to grab his wrist and force him to sign. The captive, now completely broken and sobbing, signs the contract with a pen, his hand shaking. A horse-drawn carriage travels through a forest path. He and Javier discuss the money obtained from the captive. He wonders if there were any citizens who applied after the recruitment announcement. The Frontera estate. A recruitment notice is posted, offering a salary of 20 gold and directing interested people to the Baron's mansion. A long line of people has formed, waiting to apply for the job. Lloyd acknowledges his unpopularity, but remains focused on his goals. The companion expresses his frustration to Lloyd, questioning why he set such a cheap price for the Ondol heating system construction. The companion continues his critique. He looks at a stack of papers. A worker approaches Lloyd, asking about the work contract. The worker stops Lloyd, expressing a desire to thank him before signing the contract. The worker explains that his child. The worker bows deeply to Lloyd, expressing his heartfelt gratitude, while Lloyd looks on with a slightly surprised or awkward expression. He reacts to the worker's gratitude, feeling a bit guilty or conflicted, as he admits he was only acting out of greed. The worker mentions that he has a relative in the nearby Rakana estate who is interested in having an Ondol system installed as well. The worker continues explaining that his relatives are asking if Lloyd can construct an Ondol system for them as well, and Lloyd's eyes widen. He has a sinister, greedy epiphany. He confirms to the worker that he can do it. Javier observes Lloyd's behavior, wondering if his entire motivation for building the Ondol system was just to set up this kind of profit-making scheme. He shifts the conversation to the road leading up to the mountains, looking out over the landscape with a calculated gaze. He calls out to Javier, who stands nearby with a shovel, looking out over the estate's terrain. He explains that the mountain will eventually become bare because the Ondol system consumes a large amount of resources, specifically wood. He notes that the trees currently on the mountain will not last long due to the high demand for fuel for the Ondol systems. The companion looks at Lloyd with a serious expression, clearly concerned about the long-term implications of his master's plans. The companion questions why Lloyd would proceed if he knows the negative consequences. He points toward the end of the road. He laughs maniacally, excited about the prospect of selling the coal at a high price and creating a high demand for his Ondol systems. He tells Javier that the people of their estate will get a discount. He confronts Javier, asking if he truly thinks his business practices are unfair and mean, while Javier flinches slightly. He challenges Javier, asking if the estate would even be able to pay off its debts without his ruthless business strategies. The companion is left speechless, unable to argue with Lloyd's logic regarding the necessity of his actions for the estate's survival. The companion concedes that Lloyd's plan is the best option for now, but expresses his lingering concerns about the potential fallout. The companion warns that the Baron will not simply stand by once he learns about the bituminous coal. The companion mentions that other barons have tried to mine the area before, but failed because the ground was unstable. He smiles confidently, asserting that he has the capability to overcome the challenges that defeated his predecessors. He reveals his secret weapon, the modern shield method of excavation. He enthusiastically raises a shovel high in the air, declaring that they have much work to do. He is shown from behind, crouching down while holding his shovel, ready to begin the excavation. A wide shot shows the entrance to a cave or mine shaft that has been blocked by a massive pile of rocks and debris. The cave entrance reveals the dense, unstable pile of boulders blocking the path. The dark interior of the cave. Lloyd stands with his palms pressed together in a prayer-like gesture, his face obscured by a blue-tinted shadow of intense focus. He shouts a command to summon, his hands raised as a glowing green magic circle manifests in front. A massive beam of green light erupts from the magic circle, shooting upward. The intense green light continues to surge. The beam of light descends from the sky, striking the ground with immense force. The light clears to reveal a modern, high-rise apartment building standing in the middle of the wilderness. He sits at a desk, looking exhausted and bored as he uses a magical fingertip to trace a floor plan on paper. The floor plan shows the magical light emitting from Lloyd's finger as he draws. He leans back in his chair, looking exasperated and wishing he could summon undead workers to handle the labor for free. He continues to work on the floor plan. He reflects on his recent progress. He stands before a cave entrance, contemplating the next step of his project. He activates his intermediate measurement skill, specifically the underground scanning option. The skill displays a green holographic projection of the cave's interior, showing a 5-meter radius. He stands in the cave. He looks at Peepadong, who is resting and sick from the previous road construction project. He has a realization. He accesses the Fantasy Species Random Draw menu. A magical portal opens, emitting a strange, rapid-fire sound as the summoning process begins. A small, round, pink creature with a bow on its head emerges from the magical portal. The creature lands on the ground, looking cheerful and energetic. He watches as the creature, which he calls Belle, hops around. He observes Belle, noting that it looks useless on the outside, but he remembers that Peepadong also seemed useless at first, so he remains. He asks Belle if it can grow into a giant like Padong, and if it has a max-level skill. He asks Belle to demonstrate its skill, curious to see what the small creature is capable. Belle smiles happily, ready to show off its ability. Weeks later, the cave entrance has been cleared. Belle is shown eating through the dirt in front of a shield-like piece of equipment. Belle eating the dirt reveals its skill is called Scooping Dirt Level 1, confirming its role as an efficient excavator. The scene concludes with Belle continuing to work, proving its value to Lloyd's construction efforts. He commands Xavier to prepare as Belle uses its skill, Digesting Soil Level 1, to clear the path ahead. Xavier, shirtless and sweating, grips his sword tightly, looking tense and ready for combat as he navigates the cramped, dark tunnel. The construction process continues in steps. Workers are busy forging and shaping the steel components, following the plan to build a support structure for the tunnel ground. The companion pauses, sweating and exhausted, questioning why a knight of his stature is reduced to cutting through giant snake waste, highlighting the absurdity. He, covered in sweat and dirt, enthusiastically urges the team. The team pushes a large, cylindrical structure forward through the tunnel, using rollers to facilitate the movement as they continue their construction work. He wipes sweat from his brow. The companion advises Lloyd to take a break. He firmly rejects the suggestion to rest. He reflects on his past experiences. He reaffirms his commitment to the project. Using his special vision, the workers cheer in celebration as they realize they are nearing. Lloyd thanks Belle for its help, acknowledging that the creature's unique abilities allowed them to work 10 times faster than expected. He instructs Xavier on the next steps. He warns Xavier to stay alert. He looks toward the wall of the tunnel. The thud repeats, and Lloyd stares at the wall, clearly unsettled. He is confused, questioning how the ground could be collapsing. He activates his underground scanning ability. The scan reveals a mysterious hole in the rock. The hole in the wall suddenly expands. A monstrous insect-like creature bursts through the wall, attacking Lloyd. He narrowly dodges a strike from the creature's sharp limb. The companion prepares to counterattack. The companion stands his ground against the creature. He screams in terror as he swings his shovel. He swings his shovel with all his might. He manages to drive his shovel into the creature's head. He is visibly shaken and sweating. He and Xavier are in a desperate struggle against a monstrous. The monstrous creatures reveals their terrifying. He screams in terror. The companion displays impressive combat prowess. He is spiraling into a panic. The companion continues to fight. The companion slaps Lloyd to snap him out of his panic. He insists. He is thinking. The companion is visibly exhausted and strained. He processes the environment. A lightbulb moment occurs for Lloyd as he realizes a potential solution to their problem. He grabs a torch, preparing to execute his plan. He and Xavier prepare to charge into the ant tunnel. The companion acknowledges the absurdity of their plan but recognizes. The companion continues to fight off the swarm. He and Xavier charge forward together, the torch held. A high-angle view of a stone building. The Baron reacts with shock and terror. A subordinate informs the Baron that, while the workers have been evacuated, Xavier, armored and looking intense, shouts a command to move quickly, clearly in the middle of a high-stakes situation. The companion is shirtless and sweating as he narrowly avoids a massive, sharp attack from an unseen enemy in the dark, cramped mine. The pressure mounts as Xavier questions their path, his endurance pushed to the limit by the relentless pursuit of the monster ants. He holds a torch and snaps at Xavier to stop talking because he is busy, while they are both surrounded by ants. He and Xavier are back to back, fighting off multiple ants with a sword and a shovel, noting the danger of being pincered. The companion is shown in a close-up, gasping for air and clearly reaching his physical limit in the hot, oxygen-deprived environment. His eyes are glowing with intense focus as he realizes they must find the methane gas layer immediately to survive. He and Xavier continue to push forward through the dark tunnels. He holds his torch high, contemplating how igniting the methane gas could wipe out the ants in a large area. He and Xavier both react with surprise as they spot something specific in the tunnel. A glowing green interface appears, highlighting a specific section of the wall as the methane gas layer. A shovel strikes the ground, signaling the start of their desperate excavation. He tells Xavier he will handle the digging, while Xavier focuses on keeping the ants at bay. He digs furiously with his shovel, shouting in a rhythmic, intense manner as he works. A giant ant shrieks as it lunges toward Lloyd, who is busy digging. The companion stands firm, his back to the viewer, ready to defend against the incoming attack. Xavier unleashes his combat prowess, creating a protective zone for Lloyd. The companion and Lloyd are forced to retreat slightly as a massive, imposing figure emerges from the shadows. A colossal, dark-colored ant queen towers over the battlefield, casting a massive shadow over Xavier and Lloyd. He stares up at the massive queen in awe and slight terror, commenting on its sheer size. The queen looms over them, its presence dominating the entire tunnel as Xavier and Lloyd prepare for a final stand. He asks Xavier if he can handle the queen, to which Xavier bluntly replies no, stating he knows his limits. He is sweating and tense as he reminds Xavier that they have no other option. The queen prepares a powerful attack. The companion clashes with the queen's attack. The companion is pushed back, his sword struggling against the queen's immense strength as he grinds his teeth in effort. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Xavier manages to deflect the queen's attack. Lloyd digs frantically while Xavier holds the torch. Xavier engages the massive, glowing ant queen in a desperate melee, his multiple arms swinging swords to parry the creature's overwhelming, dark energy-infused strikes. He is still digging, reacts with shock as his shovel strikes something. He shouts a desperate command to Xavier. The queen advances down the tunnel. He points toward an arrow. He is holding a torch, prepares to make a final, desperate move. He swings his shovel with all his might. The attack lands squarely on the queen's head. The fire from Lloyd's torch continues to burn. The queen, enraged and recovering from the hit, lunges forward. A powerful, concentrated blast of energy erupts, filling the tunnel. The explosion intensifies, engulfing the area in a massive, swirling vortex. The force of the blast sends debris flying. The explosion continues to rage. The companion shields Lloyd with his own body. The tunnel entrance is completely blocked by the collapse. The final shockwave of the explosion dissipates. The companion lies unconscious on top of Lloyd. Other characters arrive at the scene. A man rushes forward. The companion and Lloyd remain motionless on the ground. He slowly regains consciousness. He looks around, realizing that their plan to block the tunnel. He looks at the unconscious Xavier. He holds a small, damaged creature. He looks around with a wide-eyed. He stares at the blocked entrance. He feels a sharp pain in his head. A blue system warning appears in front of Lloyd. He, covered in dirt and sweat, stares intensely with glowing green. A glowing green holographic interface appears in front of Lloyd. The system displays an oxygen level bar that is significantly. He begins to dig into the rubble with a shovel. The companion lies on the ground. He continues to dig frantically through the debris. He continues his desperate digging, his movements blurred by speed. The companion remains unconscious on the ground. A system notification box appears. Another system notification appears. A system notification confirms that Lloyd has acquired 108 reward points, RP, for his efforts. The system displays Lloyd's updated total of reward points, which now stands at 157. He pauses, his face covered in sweat and grime. The oxygen level bar is now critically low, flashing red. He looks determined and slightly crazed as he shouts at the system interface. A digital loading screen appears, indicating that the system is searching for the protagonist's existing knowledge. Lloyd stands in a dark, digital-like space, holding his shovel. The system interface continues to update, showing that the mana absorption process is actively underway. The interface confirms that the rate of mana absorption is increasing. The system informs Lloyd that by combining his current skills, he can acquire the Asrahan core technique. Lloyd looks determined, sweating from his intense practice. Lloyd is surrounded by a surge of blue energy as he successfully acquires the Asrahan core technique, which starts at level 5. A bright spark of light appears, signaling the activation of the new skill. The light pulses with power, indicating the internal shift occurring within Lloyd. Lloyd feels the presence of a mana circle within his chest. Despite not having a natural mana heart, the system displays a 120% mana amplification. Lloyd notices he has plenty of RP and decides to immediately level up the Asrahan core technique. Lloyd presses the button to level up his skill, fully committed to the investment. The skill levels up to 6, and Lloyd is enveloped in an even stronger aura of blue energy. The system shows his mana amplification has reached 125%. He notices the RP requirement increases by 5 with each level. Despite his hesitation, Lloyd decides he has no choice but to keep leveling up to maximize his strength. Lloyd triggers the final level up, his expression intense as he focuses on the system prompt. A brilliant flash of light erupts as the skill reaches. The Asrahan core technique evolves into a double circle. He checks his remaining RP. He contemplates the consequences of his increased mana circles and wonders. The system reveals 2 new option skills. Energizer. He prepares to test his new power. He activates the Energizer skill. He begins digging at an incredible speed. The pressure mounts as his oxygen supply begins to run out. He digs frantically, his eyes glowing as he searches. He spots a small hole in the ground. He continues to dig with relentless speed. He continues his frantic digging. A digital interface displays a critical warning, the oxygen level. Lloyd's face is drenched in sweat. A holographic projection appears before Lloyd. He lets out a primal. In the background, a pale, unconscious figure lies on the ground. The oxygen warning interface shows the bar almost entirely empty. Lloyd's face contorts in a grimace of extreme physical strain. The oxygen gauge is now completely depleted. The holographic display updates. He collapses to his knees. The shovel falls from Lloyd's hands and clatters onto the ground. The system announces, informing Lloyd that the Energizer skill has expired. He remains slumped on the ground in the dark. A sudden dramatic system prompt flashes, announcing the activation. He is fueled by the new skill, lunges forward with renewed aggressive. He strikes the earth with ferocious speed and power. The holographic display shows the hole has widened to 30 centimeters. The oxygen gauge remains completely empty. A wide shot shows the deep. He lies on the ground. He continues his internal monologue. He lies motionless in the dirt. The ground begins to break apart. The wall of the tunnel continues to collapse. A small, round white creature bursts through the collapsing wall looking. He looks up with wide eyes and a manic, relieved grin. He gasps, realizing that the creature has brought fresh air. He stands up, gripping his shovel with renewed determination, ready. A serene night scene shows a full moon over a rural. A torch illuminates the dark, rocky walls of a tunnel. A knight and a man in a coat stand. The companion realizes the answer, his eyes widening. The companion is seen carrying an unconscious Lloyd on his back. The system announces over Xavier, who is still carrying Lloyd. A system message informs the user about a new skill. The companion, looking frantic and desperate, shouts Lloyd's name while running. The companion continues to carry the unconscious Lloyd. The companion, exhausted and desperate, finally reaches a point where a full moon shines brightly in the night sky. A beautiful, serene view of a village nestled in a valley. Two men are talking in the village, discussing Lloyd. The conversation continues, with one man explaining that his nephew saw. The men continue to talk. The men agree that Lloyd has changed significantly. He is seen sleeping peacefully in a bed. Lloyd's face as he sleeps, looking calm and relaxed. He begins to stir. Xavier, who was watching over Lloyd, looks surprised as he notices Lloyd waking up. The system announces, informing Lloyd that everyone in the Frontera barony. He is still in bed, looks confused as he reads the system. Another system notification appears. The system shows Lloyd's RP increasing from 7 to 507. He, lying in bed, looks at the system notifications. He smiles to himself. A peaceful sunlit path leads to the entrance of a stone mine tunnel, surrounded by lush trees. Inside the mine, workers are busy reinforcing the tunnel walls with wooden beams and moving carts of rubble. Two workers stop their tasks, looking toward the tunnel entrance with expressions of surprise and sudden alertness as someone approaches. Lloyd and Javier walk into the mine. Lloyd carries a shovel, while Javier is shirtless and alert. The workers greet Lloyd and Javier with enthusiasm, praising them for their hard work. The workers look at Lloyd with admiration, viewing him as a noble who actually cares for their lives, embodying the concept of noblesse oblige. He has a private moment of internal reflection, feeling the weight of the workers' high expectations and the pressure of his reputation. A narrative box explains that 2 weeks have passed since the monster ant incident, and the coal mine operations are proceeding smoothly. Still in the mine, he thinks about the necessity of prioritizing safety and identifying even the smallest risks to avoid potential disasters. He and Javier continue their search for ant tunnels. He questions why Javier insists on doing dangerous work personally, instead of ordering the workers to handle it. The companion looks at Lloyd with a mix of surprise and skepticism, questioning if Lloyd is genuinely concerned about the workers' well-being. The companion cuts himself off, calling Lloyd an idiot for his perspective on the dangerous work. He asserts that he should be the one responsible for the dangerous work, showing a sense of duty. The companion stares at Lloyd, his expression unreadable as he processes Lloyd's statement. He reveals his true pragmatic motivation. By doing the dangerous work himself, he can justify spending large amounts of money without anyone questioning. The companion is visibly stunned, his favorable impression of Lloyd abruptly halted by this revelation. He and Javier reach a dead end in the tunnel. Lloyd suggests they search elsewhere, but Javier stops him, noticing something. He notices that the wall seems hollow on the other side, his eyes narrowing with focus. He begins digging into the wall, speculating that there might be ant eggs that could hatch if left alone. He breaks through the wall and looks inside, his expression one of surprise at what he finds. Inside the hidden space, an orc is found, bound and wrapped in thick, white webbing. He and Javier inspect the bound orc, realizing it has been captured and stored by the monster ants. The companion moves to take charge, noting the orc looks dangerous, while Lloyd watches, cautious. He and Javier discuss the nature of the creature, with Lloyd clarifying it is an orc. He wonders if the orc is dead, but Javier explains that monster ants typically paralyze their prey to store them for later. He smiles to himself, clearly seeing the potential value in this discovery. Lloyd's expression turns into a greedy, triumphant grin as he realizes the orc is a valuable prize. A shot of the estate building. The orc, now free, introduces himself as Hiroche and expresses deep. He sits in a chair. The orc chief identified as the son of an orc tribe. He wears a cunning. He leans in toward Hiroche, preparing to make his request. He smiles brightly and asks Hiroche to gather 120 orcs. The orc chief looks shocked and immediately refuses the request. He clicks his tongue in annoyance. The orc chief calls out Lloyd for his habit of clicking. The orc chief explains that orcs are warriors who only follow. The orc chief points out that Lloyd is not a warrior. A flashback shows Hiroche in the wild, struggling against monster ants. He looks thoughtful, his expression serious as he considers the information. He licks his lips. Lloyd claps his hands, congratulating Hiroche on becoming an adult, despite the orc's failure. The orc chief is confused, insisting that he failed to catch a monster ant and was paralyzed. Lloyd points to a large, severed monster ant head, claiming that he and Hiroche caught it together. The orc chief is bewildered, stating he does not remember catching such a large ant. He leans in close. He claims the queen ant spoke. The companion watches the interaction with a skeptical. He places his hands on Hiroche's shoulders. He continues to press his advantage. He smiles warmly at Hiroche. He declares that Hiroche is an excellent warrior. The orc chief, now fully convinced by Lloyd's manipulation, repeats. He immediately pivots back to his original request. The orc chief, completely won over, shouts that he will lend. A week later, the scene shifts to a vast mountainous landscape. The group arrives at the village of the Steel Sand Orc. He and Haroch are now at the Orc village. Javier and a worker stand in the Orc village looking. He addresses the Orc chief. Akuche explains the tribe's predicament. He continues his explanation. He confirms that they hunt daily to avoid losing muscle mass. Javier advises caution, but Lloyd is already formulating a new plan. Lloyd's face as he contemplates a solution. He presents his proposal to Akuche. Akuche looks intrigued but skeptical. He asks for clarification. He smiles confidently, knowing he has successfully hooked the Orc chief. A flashback begins, showing the moment the group first arrived at the village. The green-skinned creature, Haroch, continues to wail, this time calling out for someone named Haroch. An action sequence where the green-skinned creatures are moving with incredible speed and force, leaping across the landscape. The green-skinned creature continues its powerful movement, landing on the ground with enough force to create a shockwave, showcasing its immense strength. A wide shot shows multiple green-skinned creatures leaping across the terrain toward a group of travelers. Two green-skinned creatures collide in a powerful embrace, one calling out for its father, and the other responding with the name Haroch. The force of the Orc's embrace creates a massive dust cloud, emphasizing the sheer power behind their reunion. Lloyd and Javier watch the scene with expressions of disbelief and awe. He has a devious, calculating grin on his face as he contemplates the potential productivity of having 120 workers with such immense strength. The Orc chief proudly presents the severed head of the Ant Queen to its father, who expresses immense pride in his child's achievement. The Orcs are shown celebrating, with one raising its fist in triumph. The Orcs are shown using various valuable items, including a chandelier and a treasure chest, as makeshift workout equipment, demonstrating their immense strength. He looks on with a shocked and slightly horrified expression as he watches the Orcs treat valuable items as gym equipment. An Orc straining under the weight of a heavy, golden object, sweat dripping from its brow as it continues its workout. Lloyd's face is contorted in frustration and disbelief as he questions what the Orcs are doing with such expensive items. He observes the Orcs looting or picking up items, realizing that their behavior is more like scavenging than intentional destruction. An Orc holding a golden chandelier, with a caption noting that it is worth more than any exercise equipment. He explains to Javier that he signed a contract. Lloyd outlines his plan for a stone-cold storage facility, a project that requires both specialized knowledge and the right materials. Javier's confusion highlights the innovative nature of Lloyd's ideas, which often seem ahead of their time. He explains that a cold storage is a building that preserves. The companion asks where Lloyd learned about this. He explains the need for granite. The companion notes that granite is not an easy material. He mentions that they lack dynamite. He turns to look at Javier. He thinks to himself that he has human dynamite available, a dramatic magical location called the Namaram, which is described. A city is shown trapped inside a magical barrier. The companion at the level of a swordmaster with a fourth. The companion, a skilled knight, is in a desperate struggle. The narrative shifts to explain the origin of Xavier's powerful technique. The companion is depicted in a dynamic. A massive blinding explosion of light and power occurs, signifying. The blast erupts from Xavier's sword. The powerful blast strikes the dark. The aftermath of the event is explained. The technique. The present scene returns to Lloyd and Javier. The companion questions how Lloyd knows about such a high-level theory. The companion bluntly tells Lloyd that his eyes are annoying. He laughs off the accusation and encourages Javier to give. The companion agrees to try. The companion focuses his mana. The companion strikes the rock with his sword. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the point of impact. The rock is shattered into pieces. The companion emerges from the dust cloud. He asks if Javier knew this would happen. The companion acknowledges that Lloyd's idea worked. The system indicates that Xavier is thankful for the lesson. Another system notification shows that Lloyd has acquired 54 RP. The companion complains that, as a knight, he dismisses Javier's complaints with a smile. The companion retorts sharply that he is not thankful at all. The construction work proceeds rapidly. An orc who is a gym enthusiast scolds a human worker. The orcs treating the construction work like a workout are efficiently. An orc flexes his massive muscles while working. He is holding a fan, thinks about the next steps, noting. He asks Javier about the 5 people he ordered to bring. He is looking concerned, wonders aloud if it is time. The companion calmly analyzes the situation. He is holding a shovel, looks serious as he considers the possibility. He and Javier stand together on the construction site. The companion reaches out to stop Lloyd. The companion insists that he should go alone. He looks at Javier, reminding him that they have discussed their roles multiple times. He asserts his authority. The companion closes his eyes. The two men walk through a rocky. A single discarded work glove lies on the dusty ground. He stops to pick up the glove. He and Javier pause. The companion points toward the canyon. Javier explains that the flow of mana in the area is unusual, though he admits it is too subtle to be certain. He touches his chin. His eyes widen in sudden realization. He urgently commands Javier to move. He shouts in horror that all of their soldiers might already. Two pairs of feet standing on a dirt path. One pair wears dark, sturdy boots, while the other is partially visible. Lloyd, carrying a shovel on his back, kneels to inspect the ground while Xavier stands nearby, watching. He stands up, holding a bundle of twigs, looking focused. Xavier watches him with a calm, observant expression. He and Xavier stand before the entrance of a dark, foreboding cave. He and Xavier discuss the history of the location. Lloyd's face is contorted in a furious, intense expression as he contemplates the injustice of the situation. The companion walks toward the cave entrance, urging Lloyd to follow. A foot stepping onto a glowing magical circle on the ground, triggering a trap. The companion reacts with shock and alarm as the trap activates, his expression shifting from calm to intense concern. A massive explosion of fire and debris erupts near them as the magical trap detonates. After the explosion, Lloyd and Xavier stand in the aftermath, looking at the smoking crater. He confronts Xavier, questioning his competence as a knight. He points out that Xavier should have anticipated such traps. A flashback or exposition scene shows Xavier in the novel. The companion walks into the dark cave entrance, his silhouette framed by the shadows. He speaks to Xavier. The companion stands in a meditative pose, surrounded by glowing particles of mana, explaining that mana has a constant concentration in the atmosphere. The companion explains that by detecting deviations in this concentration, one can identify the placement of magical traps. A visual representation of an unnatural concentration of mana, glowing brightly against the dark background. The companion looks focused and determined, his eyes glowing slightly as he utilizes his mana-sensing technique. He leads the way, telling Xavier to follow him. Xavier acknowledges Lloyd's good senses with a smirk. The companion watches Lloyd, noting that while Lloyd usually lies, this time feels. The companion questions Lloyd about what is happening, clearly confused by Lloyd's sudden ability to navigate the dungeon traps. The companion is left wondering how Lloyd is doing this, questioning if it's a form of powerful mana he cannot sense. Xavier's face as he decides to focus on the immediate task at hand, rather than questioning Lloyd's methods. He continues to lead the way, urging Xavier to hurry so they can save the soldiers. Inside the dungeon, a hooded figure, presumably the Dark Mage. The hooded figure's face, revealing intense, glowing eyes as he realizes someone has entered his domain. The Dark Mage ponders the activation of his trap. The hooded Dark Mage stands in his lair. The Dark Mage walks toward a heavy, reinforced door within his dungeon lair. The Dark Mage reaches out to unlatch the heavy door. Inside the cell, a group of kidnapped soldiers sits bound. The Dark Mage enters the cell area and grabs one. The soldier is thrown onto a glowing red magic circle drawn. The Dark Mage stands over the struggling soldier. The Dark Mage's face reveals his twisted, manic expression. The soldier screams in agony as the magic circle activates. The Dark Mage is interrupted by a sudden shout. He and Xavier stand at the entrance of the chamber. The Dark Mage is visibly agitated and confused. The Dark Mage prepares to defend himself. A powerful shockwave erupts in the chamber, shaking the ground. The dust begins to settle after the explosion. He takes a deep breath. He puffs out his cheeks. Lloyd and Xavier stand ready for the next phase of their assault. The Dark Mage sneers. Lloyd's eyes glow green as he activates his skill. The system confirms the activation of the Energizer skill. He digs his shovels into the ground with incredible speed. The companion looks on, noting that Xavier has never used medicine. He continues to dig rapidly. The companion thinks to himself that Lloyd looks like a ground. He pops his head out of the hole he dug. The companion leaps into action. The companion thrusts his sword forward. The sword strikes the ground with immense force. The mage is caught in the explosion. The mage cloaked in dark robes reacts with pure shock. A massive crater erupts in the ground. A hand emerges from the freshly dug hole in the ground. He pulls himself out of the hole he dug. He is still on the ground, looks up with a panicked. The mage, undeterred by the disruption, channels dark energy. The mage completes his incantation, slamming his hands onto the ground. A monstrous, two-headed creature rises from the magic circle. The mage stands before his creation, grinning with twisted pride. The two-headed monster looms over Lloyd and Xavier. He looks at the monster with a serious and analytical expression. The companion leaps into the air. He watches from the ground. The companion unleashes a powerful, fiery sword technique. Xavier's attack successfully strikes the monster, slicing through its massive body. The mage watches in horror as his supposedly invincible monster. He looks on with a bewildered expression. He reflects on the impossibility of Xavier's technique. Lloyd and Javier stand in a dark, cavernous space, both holding shovels. A hooded figure in black robes is on the ground, clearly terrified and panicking. He uses the handle of his shovel to press down on the hooded figure's head, forcing them to stay down. He confronts the hooded figure, accusing them of kidnapping soldiers and causing construction delays. The hooded figure is prostrate on the ground, begging for forgiveness and claiming they have committed a great sin. The hooded figure looks up. Lloyd secures the loot, his greed clearly satisfied by the offer. The companion enters the scene, carrying an exhausted soldier over his shoulder. He continues his interrogation, pressing the hooded figure about the items while the figure remains submissive on the ground. The companion continues to support the exhausted soldier, standing near the entrance of the cave while Lloyd remains with the hooded figure. He asks the hooded figure what they intended to do with the soldiers. The hooded figure, looking distressed and regretful, admits they were researching how to bring the dead back to life. He looks skeptical and annoyed, questioning if such a thing is even possible, and demanding to know the reason behind the research. The hooded figure is shown in a close-up, looking somber and pained as they prepare to explain their tragic motivation. The hooded figure confesses that they wanted to bring back their dead wife and child, their voice filled with grief. He listens with a neutral, slightly detached expression, his eyes fixed on the figure as they continue their story. A flashback shows the hooded figure as a happy wizard living with his wife and child in a warm, domestic setting. The flashback continues, showing a giant, menacing hand reaching for the family, representing the Lord who tore them apart. He interrupts the story, sarcastically calling the figure a storyteller and dismissing the emotional weight of their tale. He looks down at the figure with a cold, sharp gaze, pointing out that their actions caused the deaths of hundreds of innocent people. The hooded figure looks shocked and horrified as Lloyd confronts them with the reality of the lives they sacrificed. He continues his harsh critique, asking if the families and happiness of the victims mean nothing to the figure. He stands tall, looking down at the figure, while Javier stands behind him with the rescued soldiers, reinforcing the contrast between their actions. The hooded figure is shown in a dark, red-tinted frame, looking defeated and broken, as Lloyd labels them a killer. The figure breaks down in tears, finally acknowledging the gravity of their sins. Lloyd's face is shown in a close-up, his expression unreadable but firm, showing no signs of pity. He turns away, telling the figure he will return later with more people to collect the magic tools. Lloyd issues a stern final warning, setting clear boundaries for the future. The hooded figure looks up in shock and disbelief. The hooded figure is back on the ground. He reflects on the original novel's plot. He continues his narration. The narrative reveals the dark consequence of that mercy Rufalin killed. He walks away from the hooded figure. The hooded figure, desperate and cornered, suddenly lashes out. The hooded figure's face shows a crazed. Having anticipated the betrayal, he remains calm. The companion instantly reacts to the attack. Javier's strike connects, sending the hooded figure flying backward through the air, their dark magic dispersed by the force of the blow. A flashback of Lloyd's past life as a construction worker. He reflects on the foreman. In the flashback, Lloyd tries to appease the foreman by bowing. He recalls the foreman's hypocritical lectures about avoiding conflict. He explains his past strategy. He believed that, if he acted, the result was that the foreman only grew more aggressive. The foreman continues to berate Lloyd. He realizes that the foreman viewed his patience as an invitation. He struggles to contain his growing rage. He grinds his teeth. The foreman insults Lloyd's mother, pushing him past his breaking point. Lloyd's expression shifts from forced patience to cold, absolute fury. He reaches out and places a hand on the foreman's shoulder. He winds up a massive punch. Lloyd delivers a devastating punch directly into the foreman's face, the impact creating a shockwave. The foreman is sent reeling. He follows up with a relentless barrage of punches. He finishes the assault with a powerful kick to the foreman's. Other workers rush in to restrain Lloyd. The flashback ends and Lloyd is shown carrying heavy metal pipes. Lloyd's eyes widen in realization. He continues his back-breaking labor, his expression reflecting the exhaustion of his current reality. Despite the outward appearance of peace, Lloyd's mind is clearly elsewhere. The scene shifts back to the fantasy world. A news broadcast plays on a screen. Returning to the fantasy setting, a rugged, mountainous landscape under a bright, clear sky. A group of men, including Lloyd and Javier, are trekking through a dense forest path. One of the men in the group, sweating profusely and breathing heavily. Lloyd keeps a watchful eye on his group, his expression unreadable. He stops and gestures toward one of the men, demanding he hand over his backpack. He has a look of intense focus and slight annoyance, his brow furrowed as he waits for the man to comply. The man, looking distressed and tearful, pleads with Lloyd, calling him young master. He is now seen tying the man's backpack onto his own already heavy load. Now burdened with an enormous amount of gear, he continues walking. The men are shown in the background, looking at Lloyd with teary eyes and expressions of profound gratitude and awe. The companion looks on with a calm, observant expression, while the man next to him is openly weeping. The men crying, their faces twisted in emotional release. A speech bubble appears with the text. He stands with his fists clenched, looking determined and slightly stressed. A system notification box appears. A system prompt asks Lloyd if he feels rewarded. Lloyd is clearly struggling under the weight, his annoyance barely contained. A desert-like area with small, primitive-looking structures or tents nestled in the rocky landscape. A stone structure with a door, built into the side of a hill. Inside the stone room, Lloyd and Javier stand before a large, green-skinned orc-like creature. The creature looks at them with a weary, skeptical expression. The creature is shown from the side, looking back at Lloyd. He smiles broadly, looking confident and friendly. The green creature looks at Lloyd with a suspicious expression, a red X's symbol appearing next to it. He continues to smile, his expression unchanging and persistent. The green creature looks at Lloyd with a mix of confusion and annoyance, its brow furrowed. Lloyd's smile remains fixed, his eyes bright and engaging. The green creature looks at Lloyd with a skeptical, slightly weary expression, its eyes narrowed. Lloyd's smile is still there, but his eyes are closed in a friendly, almost dismissive way. The green creature looks at Lloyd with a suspicious, slightly worried expression. He continues his manipulative sales pitch, asserting that Hiroch is not as foolish as the other party believes. The green creature, still skeptical and annoyed, thinks to itself that Lloyd is a bad person. He stands on the stairs, gesturing with his hands as he continues to talk to the green creature. With a wide, exaggerated grin, tries to stop the person next to him, a blue-haired man, from intervening. He is shown from behind, his hand raised in a gesture of explanation or perhaps a pause. He looks visibly nervous, sweat beading on his forehead. The blue-haired man stares at Lloyd with wide, shocked eyes. The blue-haired man confronts Lloyd, his expression stern and demanding. The blue-haired man looks at Lloyd with intense frustration and disbelief, his eyes wide and his brow furrowed. He is shown in a close-up, his expression unreadable as he listens to the criticism. He gestures with his hand, trying to explain or justify himself to the blue-haired man. Lloyd's expression shifts to one of intense, almost aggressive determination. He clenches his fist tightly, the impact of his frustration visible in the sharp lines and motion effects surrounding his hand. He raises his fist high into the air, shouting with renewed vigor. He stands with his arm raised, looking down at the blue-haired man. The blue-haired man looks at Lloyd with a mix of confusion and lingering doubt. A rocky, desolate landscape under a dark, moody sky. He sits alone on a rocky outcrop, his chin resting on his hand as he contemplates the situation. As he sits in deep thought, his eyes closed. Two small, cute, hamster-like creatures are shown, one pink and one tan, both crying streams of water. A hooded figure, likely a mage, is casting a spell, creating large, jagged ice crystals. He is shown again in deep thought, his hand on his chin. A dark, magical energy begins to swirl, with glowing particles filling the air. The glowing particles intensify, forming a swirling vortex of red energy. A massive explosion of red energy occurs, the light blinding and intense. Lloyd's face, his expression neutral and focused. He sits on a rock under the moonlight, a small, knowing smirk. He stands and gestures to the two hamster-like creatures, directing them to a specific location. He reaches out his hand toward a pool of water, his expression focused, a hand reaching into the glowing magical water. A hand reaching into a glowing, magical pool of water. He sits on the ground, looking down at his work, while Javier stands behind him, arms crossed, watching with a stoic and observant expression. Javier's face, his expression serious and focused as he observes the situation. A tight close-up on Javier's face, emphasizing his calm, analytical gaze. He is hunched over, his hand submerged in a pool of water that is glowing with magical, multicolored particles. The companion stands with his arms crossed, his eyes closed as if he is sighing or feeling resigned to the situation. He is crouched down, focusing intently on a series of water-filled rectangular containers. The system indicates that Lloyd has developed a new skill called Asrahan Mind Technique, and that the skill has leveled up to double. A stone-walled area with an open metal gate. Two green-skinned, muscular creatures with pointed ears look on in shock and disbelief, their eyes wide and mouths agape. He stands proudly next to a massive, perfectly formed cube of ice. He smiles confidently, gesturing toward the ice block with his hand as if showing off his handiwork. The two green creatures stare at the ice block with expressions of pure amazement and excitement, their mouths wide open in shock. The companion stands in the background, watching Lloyd with a stoic expression, while Lloyd stands in the foreground, looking satisfied with his accomplishment. He gives a sly, knowing smirk toward Javier, clearly proud of his achievement. He has a smug, triumphant expression, pointing a finger upward as if making a point or boasting about his success. The companion stands with his eyes closed, looking unimpressed or perhaps just tired of Lloyd's antics. A view of an orc encampment, characterized by rugged, bone-adorned structures and tribal banners, set against a desolate, rocky landscape. Lloyd stands confidently before a large group of orcs, accompanied by Javier. The orc leader steps forward, striking a pose of strength and solidarity, while Lloyd and Javier observe him from the front. The orc leader, who looks directly at the viewer with a determined expression, his features sharp and distinct. The orc leader flexes his muscles, displaying immense physical power as he prepares to lead his tribe in a display of unity. The entire group of orcs begins to flex in unison, creating a powerful and intimidating display of strength. He and Javier watch in awe as the massive crowd of orcs continues their synchronized display of physical prowess. The orc leader continues to flex, his expression, one of intense pride and commitment to his new alliance with Lloyd. A blue system interface appears over Lloyd's face, indicating a positive change in his status with the orc tribe. Multiple system notifications pop up, confirming that the tribe has opened up, accepted Lloyd as a friend, and granted him bonus RP. He looks thoughtful, his expression unreadable as he processes the new information from the system. He grins with a determined, slightly mischievous look, clearly pleased with the outcome of his negotiations. A wide shot shows the peaceful landscape surrounding the estate, contrasting with the recent intensity of the orc encounter. The villagers react with shock and fear as they witness the arrival of the orcs, their expressions filled with alarm. He and Javier lead the orc workers through the village, the orcs carrying supplies, while the villagers scramble to get out of the way. He has a moment of internal reflection, looking slightly overwhelmed or perhaps just tired by the day's events. A flashback or thought bubble shows a noble couple looking terrified, likely a memory of the event that led to the current situation. Another system notification appears, praising Lloyd for his courage and social achievements, adding more points to his total. He is seen in a room filled with alchemical supplies, including potions and ancient books, as he searches for something specific. He sits on the floor, intently examining a mysterious, glowing orb, while surrounded by various magical artifacts. He flips through an old, dusty book, his expression focused, while Javier stands in the background, watching him closely. Lloyd's eyes widen as the book reveals a shocking detail. He rushes out of the room, calling out to Javier to organize the remaining items while he heads to the mine. He runs breathlessly toward the entrance of a mine. Inside the mine, Lloyd shouts at a worker, his face contorted. He grabs the worker by the shoulders. He asks the worker about a period of 520 years. He looks at the worker with a forced. The worker stares back at Lloyd with a blank. He shows the worker an illustration in the book. The exhausted mine worker stares blankly ahead. He is holding a book, leans in toward the worker. He continues to grin maniacally at the worker. Lloyd's face reveals a sudden, intense shift in his expression. The worker continues to stare blankly. The worker breaks into a grotesque. He now, standing a short distance away, points at the worker. He continues his energetic. A system message appears. He walks away, humming a tune to himself, seemingly pleased. A blue system box appears, confirming that something. He walks down a hallway, his footsteps echoing. He opens a door and peeks into a room. A maid stands in the room, looking startled as Lloyd enters. He speaks to the maid, mentioning meatloaf. He pauses, his expression thoughtful as he processes the maid's response. Lloyd's face contorts in sudden shock. A shot of a grand, ornate chandelier hanging from the ceiling. He sits on a sofa in a luxurious room. The two creditors look at Lloyd with smug. He sits with his hands clasped. He looks up, his expression shifting to one of slight panic. He suddenly beams with a bright. Lloyd gestures with his hands, seemingly trying to negotiate or explain something to the creditors, who watch him with skeptical expressions. He continues to smile brightly. One of the creditors looks annoyed and frustrated. The scene shows the creditors sitting on the sofa. He smiles warmly, his eyes closed in a display of feigned. A large, green foot stepping onto the floor. A large, green-skinned muscular figure stands behind Lloyd, looking angry. The two creditors are in a state of absolute terror. The orc's face, revealing a stern, intense expression with glowing eyes and a single prominent tusk. Lloyd stands in the foreground with a wide, manic grin, his fist raised in a triumphant gesture. The two creditors are shown cowering on the sofa. A tight close-up of Lloyd's face, showing him with a wide, predatory smile. The orc stands behind Lloyd. The two creditors are seen fleeing the building. He stands in the room with the orc, holding a document. He who looks calm and slightly smug as he holds. He hands the document to a man. The man reacts with a deeply concerned expression. He stands next to the orc. The man reacts with visible shock and fear. A muscular, green-skinned orc worker is shown in a close-up, sweating profusely while swinging a pickaxe with intense effort. The orc worker slams his pickaxe into the ground with immense force, causing rocks and debris to fly outward. Lloyd stands in a dimly lit, cramped tunnel, looking visibly shocked and panicked as the orc worker continues his destructive labor nearby. The orc worker is surrounded by other laborers, appearing to be in a state of agitation or exhaustion. The orc worker pauses, looking directly at the viewer with a weary, slightly dazed expression. The orc worker clutches his stomach, which is growling loudly, indicating extreme hunger. He sits on a couch in a well-lit, formal room, looking composed and thoughtful. He sits across from a man in formal attire, likely a noble or official. The noble man looks distressed and sweaty, clearly feeling the pressure of the conversation regarding the tax collection crisis. He smiles brightly and gestures with his hand, seemingly proposing a clever solution or idea to the distressed noble. He and the noble continue their discussion in the parlor. Lloyd is leaning forward, actively engaging the other man with his proposal. a desolate, swampy landscape under a cloudy sky. The area appears abandoned and difficult to cultivate. He points upward with a confident, slightly mischievous grin, clearly feeling proud of his new plan. A boot steps into the muddy water. He and Javier walk through the swampy, abandoned land. Lloyd explains his idea to Javier, who looks skeptical. Lloyd's face as he looks off to the side with a smug, confident expression, clearly pleased with his own ingenuity. He is crouched down in the mud, examining the ground intently. He has tools nearby, suggesting he is preparing to start his project. Lloyd's hands as he carefully shapes the mud, demonstrating his focus and attention to detail. He sits alone in the middle of the muddy field, looking down at his work. A transition shot showing a rooster crowing at dawn, followed by a view of a lush green landscape with farm fields and a house. He is shown sitting in the mud, looking exhausted and disheveled, muttering to himself as he continues his work. The companion and the noble stand together, observing Lloyd's progress from a distance. Javier's face as he looks at the noble with a serious, slightly concerned expression. He is seen from behind, walking through the muddy field with a bucket and a small shovel, looking tired but determined. The noble looks on with a contemplative expression, seemingly impressed, or perhaps worried, by Lloyd's relentless work ethic. The companion watches Lloyd with a stoic expression. The system indicates that the Baron's favorable impression of Lloyd. A view of the forest. He kneels in the mud, Lloyd's arm raised high against the backdrop of a full moon. He is still kneeling and the mud raises both fists. A surreal vision fills the frame as golden coins rain down. He is depicted as if drowning in a sea of golden. The fantasy fades, and Lloyd is back in the muddy field. He collapses backward into the mud, completely spent. Lloyd's face as he lies in the mud. A blue system interface box appears over Lloyd's face as he lies on the ground, signaling a notification from the system. The system message displays a notification regarding Lloyd's progress. A follow-up system notification informs Lloyd that he has successfully unlocked. He sits up in the mud. Lloyd's eyes glow green as he views the system. He reaches out his hand, pinching the top of the wireframe. As Lloyd interacts with the wireframe, the mountain model shifts, and rocks appear to break off, accompanied by a rumbling sensation. He reacts with shock and anger. The system responds with a cold, blue text box, clarifying that the current situation is a direct result of Lloyd's own wish. He sits on the ground. The system provides a cryptic explanation. He crouches in the dirt. Two small, cute creatures, a hamster and a pink blob-like. He holds the pink creature in his hand. He stands by it tranquil. He smiles warmly while holding the pink creature. He stands by the lake again. He looks determined, his expression serious as he talks. He holds the hamster in his hand. Lloyd's hand holds the pink creature. He sits in a contemplative pose. He stands in the wilderness. A close-up shows Lloyd's finger pressing the blue button. He stands in the open field, looking at the system interface. A magical glowing green circle appears in the air, spinning. The magical circle continues to spin rapidly. The energy beam strikes the ground with force. A small, glowing yellow orb bounces along the ground after the impact, settling near Lloyd's feet. The orb transforms into a small, round yellow creature with large eyes and a wide, toothy grin. Lloyd stares at the new creature with wide, bewildered eyes, clearly surprised by the result of his draw. The hamster and the pink creature appear. The new yellow creature waves its arms happily. The three creatures dance in a circle. He watches the creatures with a warm, amused smile. The yellow creature suddenly spits out a crumpled piece of paper. He picks up the paper. He squints at the blank paper. The yellow creature stands nearby, innocent and happy.